everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. Now, this is very weird, because normally we'd have James' beautiful interlude of what we are doing and the episode number, which I did have written down, but I've lost it, so I'm going to lose points for professionalism to James, so I apologise, but James is on holiday. Now, our scheduling has had some shakes. We didn't anticipate the Derby episodes taking so long to be just greenlit. So at the moment we are literally planning episode after episode, and it's all getting crammed. So James was on holiday when we actually thought everything was going to be sorted. So everything's gone crazy. So today we will be talking about the future of the franchise, and you'll get to listen to my beautiful serenading voice all the way through it. But to save you the misery of listening to me waffle on my own, I have roped in some help from a friend who has been way too long since I've dragged him onto the show to say hello. It's Ikraik.
Hey everyone, it's great to be back. So
I
yeah,
know.
it's so long.
What was the last episode again? Was it the industry chat?
It was with Memo and I'm sorry if I missed somebody. I think it was with James as well. Basically, we talked about. It was before James joined in officially into the Let's Talk AC. Um, if I'm not wrong, we were talking heavily into Mass Effect for some reason. Uh, about how the industry needs to change a bit and something about along those lines. But I forgot about that because we did so many talks, and that was the last thing that I remember as we did together in the podcast.
It's been too long. I think my philosophy is always trying to, get friends on the show, community members. But I will admit I didn't really expect this show to grow as big as it did, so trying to drag all my friends back on, I'm like, oh, sorry, let me just shuffle my drive around. I've got so many ideas. I want to talk about unicorns. I don't actually want to talk about unicorns. Please don't at me.
How dare you ignore the Unibears? Just kidding.
The unicorn is so cute.
Yeah, I know, but it will make Raptor pretty happy at this moment.
I really find it funny, and I know I'm probably going to get some stick for this, but technically anything they add in as an animus glitch is canon. So technically the Unibear, even though it's an animus glitch, is canon.
Any
So
microtransaction over there is canon, unfortunately, because it is the animus glitch that we had. We also had cheats for AC2, which had the Raiden costume, if I'm not wrong, and unicorns too. So it's been there a long time back.
I don't mind it, I'm not really too fussed about, as long as MTX aren't really intrusive. If the cosmetic, yeah, I really understand with Valhalla. There's a lot more MTX armor sets and a lot less
Yeah,
base. I get the issue.
I
My
don't
issue,
mind cosmetics as well, and I hope that they deviate the predatory practices of introducing overpowered weapons into the MTX scheme, and which was the case and was reported as well.
I will admit though, and I'm not trying to play thing, but I will say that Valhalla's MTX is a lot less predatory than Odyssey's
But it's
because
costlier. It's fucking
yeah,
costly.
but it's
It's
just in Odyssey because it was build based.
mhm.
Them MTX sets, I think I saw a really insane assassin build that could one shot everything, but you needed the £15 set from the start for it to work. Like,
Yeah.
that's bad. Oh, let's build an assassin build. Yes, you can use in-game armor, or pay £15 to make it work
What
better.
if I told you right now that £15 for the same thing in Valhalla, you're going to pay about like £30. This is doubled in price.
Yeah, and I think that actually ties in with the future of the franchise
Yeah.
because it's funny that everyone is here complaining about microtransactions and stuff. But what if I told you that this isn't the future of the franchise, but it's actually the past.
It could be. Considering how the trend is going, and they're starting to feel the effects as well. Where the post-launch, where they thought they could glean more money from the fans, they're not able to do so anymore. And they had the like in terms of financial success, it's pretty great, but the engagement is still not there, and that's what they're trying to achieve. So they probably are reworking on that, which is why they're also going back into the linear fashion, as reported. So just hoping that it would catch up on that, and bring bring back the pace that the fans wanted, and hopefully conclude the series for what seems to be more than 15 years at this point.
But I think as well, when we if we touch briefly on the MTX, I've been playing Syndicate and Unity once again, just because
Mm-hmm.
I like revisiting, and the microtransactions in them are more predatory than Valhalla. Like, if you buy the XP boost in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, if I remember correctly, because I did buy it on my second playthrough, because I wanted my new game plus to be a bit faster. Um,
Yeah, fair
that's a
enough.
per- that's a permanent buff. You buy it and it's permanent. But in Syndicate, the XP boost, because there's two, there's an XP and a resource booster, is 2 hours for 5.99. So
I would say Odyssey is more predatory, but that's mainly because what I feel is that how they set it up for getting that XP boost is very predatory in nature. Because in Syndicate, even though there is the XP boost option, um, you technically are not gated by it. Whereas in Odyssey, because of the level scaling, you need more XP to get it through, to progress through the story, to progress through the enemies. And I find that extremely predatory in a way that it forces the consumer to go towards it, forces you that because now there's a tougher enemy and it's going to waste so much of your time, you are compelled to, like, hey, there's a time saver option of paying £5 of per minute boost, even though the percentage would is not as great as what is there in Syndicate or the other games. It compelled you to do that, and in Syndicate it did not. I could totally ignore that and still progress through my actions, through my challenges, and still gain my XPs and my skills accordingly.
which is very fair enough. I think I didn't find that I needed the XP boost in Odyssey, but then again, I play games like Dark Souls, so I'm used to things being tough as hell. So, but I think for me, what I find a bit more predatory about the Syndicate side is not that it's ignorable, because it is. I do agree. Like, I've never noticed it before. This is my first time of seeing it. It's more the fact of that it's 5.99 for 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and in my opinion, I think it cost me a fiver to get the right amount of Helix credits to get it in Odyssey for life. But if I want to do a 12-hour playthrough of Syndicate, that's 6 times 5.99, so that's like near enough £35
But again,
for.
that's expecting that you would use it entirely, and
Yeah, that's
uh,
still a bit. It's a bit unfair. Oh, 2 hours. Again, you are right. You don't need it, but 2 hours pay this money. Oh, 2 hours pay a bit more. 2 hours pay a bit more. 2 hours pay a bit more. It's like, come on, series, slow down. I'm not gonna keep paying my card for this XP boost that I don't even need. So what's the point?
but I would say that's because it started. The model started from Syndicate for being aggressive, and then it became even more predatory in a nature for the subsequent series onwards. Even
What
though
about
Unity started with the microtransactions, it was mainly cosmetic and to increase up your leveling up way. But even then, you can earn that through your play style, through playing through the game and through multiplayer missions, which is still fun to this day. I still enjoy playing it by myself and with some of the buddies. For example, Memento Gallery. He still plays AC Unity. His videos are still popular to this day. Um, Then there is the issue with the microtransaction with Syndicate is that even though it exists, it is not on your face. It does not compel you to be like, hey, I'm restricting your progress so much that you're compelled to buy it. So that is what I felt with Origins, even though it was there, it was not on your face. I felt that heavily with Odyssey and the same with Valhalla, mainly because of the large skill tree, which I didn't find the use for.
I think the one with Unity that I've heard a lot of people talk about that I really don't understand is you can get time gated XP boosts for the for the multiplayer side only, which is very weird. Why would you want to pay money to get an XP boost in the multiplayer side instead? Like, why? Like,
So
what's the
they were,
point?
so I think they were trying to play around like the gacha games in mobile industry where you pay more to win in a situation, and this is the first time when they introduced it as well. That system of microtransaction in games, and EA has been very popular about it. And obviously the Ubisoft execs thing that was giving them more greens in a way, and it did. You see their earnings giving them more revenue than before through microtransactions, and that is why they continue to support the model to this date. Unfortunately, that is still the case even now. You see that there are now record high sales of microtransaction with Valhalla, and you see most of the post launch content is not about the DLCs or the new quests. It's mainly the cosmetics.
Cosmetics are the sadly cosmetics are the future, and it kind of
Yeah,
sucks. But really, Ubisoft had a winner.
yeah,
Had like Odyssey started it. This winner, in my opinion, and Origins had it, and so did Valhalla. But Valhalla sucks, and it needs to be bigger and actually more important, and that is Redder. Now, Reddit is broken completely. The whole Opal idea is not good, in my opinion. But
it's
the
just an
idea of,
excuse. It's just an excuse, I would say,
but
for a merchant.
yeah, but in my opinion, they do have the potential of making Redder a unique point. This is why a lot of mobile games are really better for their MTX because if you can buy it, all mobile games that I've played, because I actually study heavily on pay to win because I am a very freemium customer. I don't spend money on games if I can help it unless I buy them outright or DLCs. And a lot of them have options to earn in these gear with
Yeah,
in-game currency. But in the problem with Reddit is they're split up. So
yeah,
in the future, you shouldn't have to be like have an arm bracer week 1, week 20, have the leg bracer. You should have like full sets constantly on sale for an in-game currency, not opals, because I think opals is stupid. I really think it should just be, if it's I'm gonna use Syndicate because I'm British and pounds make a lot more sense in my brain.
hmm,
But if it should be like if Syndicate had a Reddit, your in-game currency of pounds should be able to be spent on the Reddit store as well. Now, how
yeah.
much gold you can get in Blood and Valhalla, which you don't need, I'd rather spend that in a Reddit shop to get some of the MTX items.
This was available for Origins. In If you go to Origins, instead of spending the money-based currency, you can use your in-game currency to buy off the sets from what you earn in Origins as you play through. Um, but for Odyssey onwards is when they started forming this unique currency for that particular system and not anywhere else. I forgot what it was called, but it was that is the only currency that you'd use to get the microtransaction based gear sets, and that practice followed through Valhalla, and here we are, unfortunately. But
On Origins, you've just jogged my memory. I remember because it's 3,000 gold to get a chest,
yeah,
and that always gives you like a really good item from the MTX. And I remember I had more enjoyment of playing the game when I was trying to 100% and keep going back to the merchant because I wasn't doing ridiculous, stupid side activities. I wasn't doing anything daft hunting for secret currency. It was just literally, okay, I'm sat on a ton of gold. I've 100%ed the map. What can I buy? Oh, I can buy one of these. All right, I'm back off playing the game, trying to 100% some other bits, get some more photos. Hey, look, I'm back on 3,000 gold. I'll go spend it. It's a healthy loop. So for the future, take away opals and the ridiculous side quests because I've never done them, and just one huge currency. No one will complain when you literally sat on too much coin.
And
I'll
find
have
ways to earn more of that currency.
Yeah,
Like if you notice, like most of the patches that I, this is one thing I find ridiculous is that when players find these ridiculous, like not ridiculous, they do find ways to earn more money. The first thing Ubisoft does is not to fix the major issues that hinders other players' progress, but is to patch these. I wouldn't want to say exploits. It's more of a ways to earn more money, and they would just like patch it out instantly. And I find that like I understand that they want to make players play the game how it is intended, but the reason why the players tend to do that is because the game is hard to earn money in that manner, and that force them to force their hand. So the only other way is microtransactions, and players definitely don't want to spend more money than they want to.
so this actually comes to the point that me and James discussed in our last episode, is that looking at the future, they're not going forward, they're going back. And by that I mean, we discussed in the last episode some RPG mechanics that were actually in the older games because everyone keeps thinking Origins was the first RPG when it wasn't. But when you look at the Montenegro Villa, the Homestead in SF3, and the Great Iguana in Black Flag, they all have an economy system to earn economy. You send ships out to get trade. And then you look at Ravensthorpe, and all you're really doing is increasing the food buff when you buy new buildings, which is pointless. And it's
And
like,
you get nothing back. Yeah, that's
yeah,
one of the first complaints I had when I was playing Valhalla. I was like, yeah, I'm like sort of like the jarl of this particular area, but I get absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I bring in the gold, I bring in everything, but yet I have to pay more shit for my own city, sort of thing.
that's why it's weird, for a game that's always looking to the future. Why did Ravensthorpe go back as if it Ravensthorpe to me feels like something that AC2 should have had. Like, no
Mhm.
offense, because I think I do like Ravensthorpe, but AC2 was the first one to give us a fully fledged economy system by building. Why
Mhm.
couldn't we have had that in Valhalla? I hate river raids, but I would have actually been more inclined to do the river raids to go back to Ravensthorpe to build buildings if I'm getting an income of gold or something,
Yeah, it
not a
feels
food
super
buff.
dead. It feels super dead after upgrading as well. Like after you max out everything that you need for that particular building, it becomes super dead for even approaching that in Valhalla.
I've actually not got past 4 yet. I
Oh
just
god.
I don't know. I like what they've done and I love the design of it, but I just don't see the point upgrading the buildings. There's
Hmm.
just no agency to doing it, and that's like a problem that the future series need to do. There needs to be agency, and I don't know if I'm using the term correctly, but like that new leaked update is meant to be more mastery challenges. There's no agency to go back in the game and finish the mastery challenges. They're not.
Supposedly, we're
Va-
not sure whether it comes within the next week or so. But yeah.
but there's no agency to jump back into the river raids.
Hmm.
So for the future, they need to find a way of giving players more agency to get back into the game. Because at the
I would say
moment,
a purpose, a sense of purpose.
yeah,
So,
and
one way that I see the older games doing, like for example, let's take AC2, because this is where it introduced to RPG and its mechanics, is the reason why players go and invest money in Monterey's journey is that the moment you go back, something new, you have the sense of discovery every time you do, and you earn something back. Your money becomes full, so that's the reason why you go back. And with more money, you can build up more. You can build up Monterey's journey to what it is now, and still reap rewards for it, which gives in turn give you more access to more weaponaries, more systems, etc. That is such a good system, and it's such a stable system as well. Now the economy seems very empty, very bare bones, that it is pointless to do any of them at this point.
I think something else that would work, and I'm taking cues from Destiny here, and I know it's really bad, is for the seasonal stuff, live service. I know everyone's going to complain because I'm not. I'm suggesting just reuse assets here, but every month or every new season, give us a 5 to 10 hour epilogue mission set in England, so you don't have to make a new world or anything. I just look at Avor for example. The first season after you've completed the main campaign. So I'm going to say first season into 2021, for example. You should have had like a 5 star mission where Avor is doing work, a whole storyline around Ravensthorpe. So she's like helping people with, now that she's a clan leader, she has to do some missions for Hatham because he may have found some more information about what Alfred's up to. You
Hmm.
know, it's just 5 to 10 hour epilogue stuff every new season update that
Yeah,
over a year would fill out basically a whole DLC story over
it
a
would
year.
give a purpose. So that's the thing. That's another thing that AC needs to address in the future games is how they can handle DLCs in terms of an epilogue. So far, the DLCs in Valhalla had their entry level so low that it did not make sense. It did not make sense to the plot. It did not make sense for the DLCs as well. For example, I've completed the entire journey, and the entry level for Dawn of, no, sorry, for Wrath of the Druids was the very first level of the settlement, and the same for the Siege of Paris, where I expected to meet Rolo, the one that we meet in Valhalla, and we never got that opportunity. And it didn't make sense of why I would have a relationship with someone from France here, or how is that affecting Ravensthorpe in the final battle with Alfred. It had no consequence, no, none whatsoever.
And see, I can understand, locking content is very difficult,
Hmm.
but instead of locking it behind like a mechanic like Ravensfall, why can't they just unlock it after a certain story arc is completed? So once you've completed the Hampshire arc, this DLC unlocks. It then gives no player the sense of, oh well, I'm gonna have to rush through Ravensthorpe. I'm gonna have to rush this and unlock it because some people may have unlocked Ravensthorpe level 6 and not even started the story, so they're getting DLC. But if I just complete the Hampshire arc, which is the very last arc, and next Dawn of Ragnarok unlocks or someone else unlocks, and even especially with Dawn of Ragnarok having no modern day, if that unlocked after the Binding of Fenrir mission
Hmm.
and you got to play it, that DLC in that as the first DLC, instead of Wrath Druids, that would have worked.
Yeah,
Because it's flowing so nicely. Oh, now you've completed the Hampshire arc and the credits scrolled. You've unlocked Wrath of the Druids. That would have
exactly.
worked. But Ava should age as well.
Yeah,
So
I didn't. Yeah, I one of the things that I expected in Dawn of Ragnarok was that we had supposed leaks that Eivor looks older, and I was expecting to see older Eivor in that fight in for Dawn of Ragnarok to see that, like, whether how the epilogue is being treated right now, how the modern day is being treated right now, and there was absolutely no answers. But yeah, this is more turning into Valhalla rather than what we talk about future of AC. So that is something Ubisoft needs to address on how to introduce ways to bring the players in continuity with the games, the experience that they're playing through. I don't mind if the DLC would need some sort of a level requirement as long as it has a good continuity with the plot line, rather than just like hoping that everybody would play it in as soon as they play Assassin's Creed, whatever the next title would be.
I really think looking at the future of the franchise, these shouldn't be live service.
Yeah,
Like,
no microtransactions is what I say, but they're not going to change that.
the only live service arc that I would like to see part of the franchise, in my own opinion, is if they created their own streaming platform for Assassin's Creed only. And I know people are gonna be like, "Oh, that sounds horrible," but as somebody who really loves Game Pass, because I can't buy games outright. I can pay monthly subscriptions every now and then. Imagine if you could pay a monthly subscription just for Assassin's Creed stuff, where you could get
Oh, I
all
wouldn't.
Assassin's Creed games,
If
even
it
if you got
is,
free
yeah.
comics as well on it. Like that's the big thing. They need to make, to be honest, they need to make like a Disney Plus Game Pass type thing for Assassin's Creed that gives us free access to free comics, because that is one of the biggest blocks in the franchises of the
I think they
transmedia. So
already have Ubisoft Plus, but it is already pricey, like way costlier than. I think it was £15. I think for Ubisoft Plus subscription, and for Game Pass is much cheaper. I think is what, $9, £9. I think, I'm not sure.
see, the issue I'm thinking with like the future of the franchise and Ubisoft Plus is Ubisoft Plus is a good way for people to, I know it pricey, experience, the games and the future games. But having a live service Game Pass model for Assassin's Creed that gives players or fans access to free comics, because and maybe discounts or free books. And the reason I'm saying that is they're weighing so heavily on transmedia that in the future there's going to be so much disconnection between the lore and the franchise. The Mei Ching comic that came out, or novel, is not canon.
Yeah.
That's wrong. The Heresy novel, which I've just finished, which was fantastic, really set up a lot of Templar ideologies and Templar ideas that the games never explore.
Hmm.
Haytham's story for Assassin's Creed 3, if you just play the game, he's a one monotone character. But you read Forsaken, oh my god, he's so fleshed out. So for the future, they need to balance that heavily. And if they have a live service model where you can get free access to the transmedia, you're creating a perfect balance for fans to catch up and on this lore that they're refusing to touch in the games.
But if you do that for the future of AC, the thing is, it is not varied, or I feel that it's not as varied, or the thing about that is it is already a franchise, and it is not varied enough to capture interest for a future growth, which is something that Ubisoft wants, and I don't think that would be what future of AC would be. But it's pretty interesting to discuss nonetheless. Like, I hope the future model that Ubisoft would have as sort of a subscription service would include the external services that they provide, apart from games that they produce, but also through comics and transmedia as well.
Because this whole talk actually brings us on to the next part for like what holds for the future, and what I actually hope they don't do for the future, and that's hide law in transmedia. Like,
No, I would say no to that.
like
Yeah,
not to be rude, the German saga for Valhalla is pretty good. It's a good book. It opens up some of the world, but no laws hidden. And
yeah,
again, you read Heresy, which is fantastic, and then you think, well, hang on a minute, this is a new light of the Templars that I've never seen. Because in the games, Templars are just the bad guys, but in this one, really, the Templars look weird. Like, I don't know how to say it without spoiling the book, but the Templars look
yeah.
different to
That
what we know in the
does,
games.
yeah.
Black, the Black Cross, which is
Mhm.
the um, Otterberg's like Sigma team, is comes from transmedia, and yet that's a pivotal point of the law. Heck, as I keep demanding, the games should focus on the instruments of the first will. No,
Exactly.
they're a transmedia thing. So for the future, they need to pull out of this rut they're in, where they should. I know I'm gonna get so much backlash for
If
this.
that's the case, what I would say is that they need to have some sort of an isolated lore that would work for the transmedia. And what is there in the game can refer to that isolated lore, but it needs to have its own continuity, not in a way that affects the player experience for those who are joining in for the first time, right? Like, for example, say like there's this person who's like, hey, for example, in Steam currently you can get older AC games, like for example, Black Flag, Unity, Syndicate, and Rogue in a bundle, and players tend to get that if they want to shell out their money. And when they do, if there is a huge disconnect between, say, Black Flag and Rogue, meaning because of the transmedia in between, that will affect the player experience because they think that's the chronological order to play, but it doesn't work. So I would say that if they keep it isolated in a way that even though the game refers to the isolated lore, it does not affect the continuity of the existing lore that pushes into the games. It would work pretty well under that model, to have a proper lore of, say, for example, Templars or Assassins, um, and not put very big lore, like for example, Juno, you know what, in a comic.
See, that is one fix, because like The Last Descendants, I know I've only read the first book,
Mhm.
that opens a lot of lore stuff, but the only reference to that in games is Odin's Sight, which is
Mhm.
in the third book, and it's also in Valhalla. That's pretty good. It opens up AC lore very well, but it doesn't discontent, but it doesn't really break the lore of the game.
Right.
But I think the other way is not. I know this is going to get some backlash from some fans, but Ubisoft need to stop being scared of the stories they've written. I get it's an Assassin's Creed game. I understand that assassins have got to be in it. But if an Assassin's Creed novel is allowed to call itself Assassin's Creed something and feature a Templar storyline, just like Assassin's Creed Rogue, then
Mhm.
the future games shouldn't be afraid to do that as well. Like,
I wouldn't mind
that's.
that. Yeah. I think we had this conversation in our first podcast where uh, we talked about how whether assassins need to be in Assassin's Creed anymore. And uh, I still maintain with that is that if you're having it in a franchise system, uh, you can have it named something else, like from the world of Assassin's Creed, the Templar lore, whatever you want to call it, uh, rather than saying like Assassin's Creed something, and then when you go through the entire journey of experience the book, you don't find assassins at all. So that's what I feel. But yeah, I understand your point as well.
I think that is always the hardest part, but I think it's the one thing I've always and I learned it through heresy, and I know I'm going to touch on a little bit here, and I'm going to do a proper book for you later. Is the whole modern day is Templar only.
Hmm.
The past stuff is you play as someone who trains an assassin but never joins the assassins, but you actually work alongside the assassins. And to me, that was phenomenal. That was pretty good. And I was like, that could translate in a game as an Assassin's Creed game because you are playing as an assassin, you are doing assassinate stuff, but fundamentally it is a Templar game. Because, well, Templar storyline.
Right.
Or retrospectively, because they haven't technically I'm not they haven't touched on it, but the whole modern day could be AC3 style assassins missions, breaking and entering to get peace of Edens. That's your groundbreaking assassin knowledge. But the assassin's memory you're visiting turn is a Templar. He was never an assassin, he was a Templar.
That is very
So
interesting, Declan. So, because again, because since we're talking about future of AC, we need to talk about how the games can, like in future, this should progress in a way. And for that, the crucial element is the modern day. Obviously, we have seen takes where like modern day is so disconnected. There are a lot of issues with that as well, mainly because of the discontinuity we see with transmedia and with the main games. Um, but they are essential, and this brings that is where the lore of Assassin's Creed is very important in modern day to progress the future of AC, in my opinion.
And that's where the whole pivotal point of, the whole franchise is modern day and the past aren't separate. They're the one and the same essentially. So you could argue that the modern day could be assassins only, but the past is Templar only. Does that make an Assassin's Creed game? Well, yes, because everything you're doing in the modern day is assassins. If you're working for an assassin cell, you're doing AC3 style missions where you're exploring, very small linear open-ended environments doing assassin missions. There's your Assassin's Creed content. But just because the past is what a Templar who doesn't do parkour or social stealth, that it should now be shipped off as the world of Assassin's Creed. Because to me, that
I would
doesn't
say
feel fair.
I would say it is fair mainly because one, the that is where we need to draw the line of what you're majorly experiencing as. If the lore is, or if you're what you're playing as the majority of it as an assassin, then yeah, Assassin's Creed title is well deserved. But if you're playing something more of a Templar or more of something else, it would deviate from the experience and it would be something else in its essence itself. So it would come under the franchise of like from the Assassin's Creed lore rather than being an Assassin's Creed thing.
And this is where my biggest point that I have as a worry as a fan for 15 years, where the future of Assassin's Creed is actually not bright. And I don't
Yeah,
mean to be down, but the
it is
franchise,
not.
like, it's one thing where what I don't kind of can't wrap my head around is the fact of the game spent 10 years of just assassins only in the past. And
Mhm.
I have no complaints of Assassin's vs. Templar stories, and I never will. But then they're allowed to market, Assassin's Creed Black Cross, a Templar only story, Assassin's Creed Heresy, basically a Templar only story. The
I
Assassin's
was
Creed.
I would say the major cause of that is I may be biased in this is that the lack of diversity in settings. You notice the settings that we have so far were European, either European, American, and very, very rarely into Egypt. But even then, it is so predominantly of a singular culture that it is very hard to find a unique experience for an assassin, for a Templar to explore in. And I feel that that would be more explored if they had gone for a more diverse setting. For example, Asia settings or the southern, like South America, African. We have African issues. Why not an African-based Assassin's Creed? Apart from Egypt, that is, you need to go more south, and that would be something that would be fun to explore. So yeah,
And see, this is why I'm saying that the future doesn't look bright. Is because everybody is expecting an assassin game, an assassin game, an assassin game. And if they give a Templar, you are right in saying that, it should be from the world of Assassin's Creed, which then, in my opinion, they should never market comics as Assassin's Creed, Black Cross, a Templar story. But then, as Darby rightly said in the podcast that we did with him, it's not always able to make that clean break in history.
mhm.
You can't always make a clean break of, well, this person's fundamentally bad, so they're going to be a Templar, so this
Yeah,
person can
it's a
be
choice.
assassin.
It's always been a choice.
Yeah. So, with the understanding of history is impossible to make a clean break between good and evil, assassin versus Templar, then the franchise predominantly focusing only on assassins in the early days has made this future where they could pick different time zones in different parts of the world that they've never explored. But if they can't make a clean break for Assassins vs. Templars, so they try and write it off as, the modern day will feature heavily on the Assassins, like so much more that you'll have an open-ended missions where you're proper assassin and you're doing assassin stuff in the real world, Watchdog style. I wouldn't want that, I know, but just using it as an example, and the past is more Templar based, then
To be
correct,
honest. To be honest, that sounds so cool that I really want it now, and I've been missing that for a long time in an
Well,
AC game.
it
Yeah,
was a
I've been
cool,
missing
but
that. I've been missing that. Come on. I mean,
I do agree.
for the past what, 3 games, and what, about more than 120 hours per game. I'm missing that. So yeah,
But
that
and
hurts.
I would miss that. But the problem with that is, if let's say the modern day has a 20-hour assassin story and the past has a 40-hour Templar story, you are correct in saying that it should rightly be marketed as from the world of Assassin's Creed, a Templar story. You are right in saying that's how it should market. But for the future of the franchise, you focus so much on Assassins only and never explored that if you can't make that clean break between Assassin and Templar, so you have to do a Templar only story, that means you now are limited what you can tell in Assassin's Creed to make
I wouldn't.
Assassins
I
fit.
would not say so because very first thing that I enjoyed about Assassin's Creed was the duality of understanding why we kill Templar, like why we kill Templars in because we were playing as assassins, and also sympathizing with them. It was during AC2 it became extremely black and white. In AC3 again the gray lines started to appear, and in Revelations again it is far more grayer than before. Um, where the Templars are not doing this for the sake of villainy or for the sake of fun. Uh, there is a motivation behind it, and that is what makes Assassin's Creed unique to me, is that we always see victors in in our history books, right? For example, when you hear the name Assassins prior to Assassin's Creed, regard whatever we hear about them, we know that the assassins were not good people. They're generally not. They kill people for their living, and Templars have done far more heinous crimes, but in history they have been known to be saviors. And this gives an alternate history, which is what we want to look for, an alternate version of history where um, whoever we seem to be, it's sort of like the Joker mentality in the DC universe, what I feel, being implemented here in Assassin's Creed. Is that you need to find a setting where it is unfavorable to an assassin, and uh, finding that as the truth, finding their truth in finding meaning of being in part of the creed and making that choice of being an assassin. That is still unique to each culture, to each experience, and it is fun to find that meaning, uh, which I feel is still yet to be explored with an assassin's based setting. In Templars, yes, there are explorations of it, but they are usually the victors in history, and we have seen that. That change in diversity is what I'm looking for. But yeah, I understand what you mean by that. By only focusing on assassins, we will get little of Templars, but that should not be the case. When we're exploring as a choice of being an assassin through the game itself, when we go for the kill, we understand the motivations of the enemy. Because one of the first things that hit me so hard in AC1 was killing the doctor, is that the doctor was genuinely caring about the livelihood of the citizens, even though he was harshly treating them. And immediately after the mission, the NPCs would be far more aggressive towards you and crazy. And that was the cause of my action on that particular Templar that caused to this chaos in a way, an imbalance in the society. And that effect still remains. So which is pretty interesting.
The, it's stuff like that I really love, but I think it's just as an Assassin's Creed fan for 15 years since day one and looking at the future, I don't want another game where I'm strapped into the animus and I'm playing as another assassin. You know, Rogue was one of the most uniquest games I ever played and actually gave me more joy than any of the past games before it because Shay turned Templar. You know, it was this unique look into the Templar world and it was a great Assassin's Creed game for it, but it was too short.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in this mindset that now Assassin's Creed has always been about the Templars, the Assassins, and the ones who came before. To then say, you know, right, for the next game is another assassin, for the next game, another assassin, but we're also going to start a new franchise now called From the Wall to Assassin's Creed, where you get to play Templars. To me, that's kind of like unfair on fans because a lot of fans may not have the money to keep up with that. I know I don't. So, being able to play an Assassin's Creed game in the future where if the modern day is Assassins only and the past is Templar, that'll be perfect as long as I'm getting that fluidity, that social stealth, that
I wouldn't
parkour
mind
system.
paying for the Templar. So that's the thing, right, Declan? You are assuming the fact that this is an isolated event, but if they are together, like from the world of Assassin's Creed and Assassin's Creed, that together as a concept, it would be pretty fun. Like, well, what if we had a duality of a game, right? Like, in one side we play as the assassin, and maybe the next playthrough we play as the Templar. See how the histories play out. That'd be pretty fun to play, as in terms of a player and in terms of a consumer for entertainment. Because not only you're playing as a protagonist, you're also playing as the antagonist of the series, which is pretty fun. I would
And
say, I would say they're together. They're not exclusive, but they're inclusive of each other. And but again, if you're prioritizing on experience with assassins, Templars need to Templars would be on the lower end of that spectrum. But it doesn't mean that they need to be excluded out from the experience. You need to have a little bit of the Templar experience of the or the empathizing nature of it to understand their perspective. But if you want to bring a Templar experience into it, I wouldn't say it would be an Assassin's Creed, a perfect future for an Assassin's Creed game.
I think that's where things get because
Yeah,
again,
it's blurry. Yeah.
this is like the problem with Ubisoft is that Rogue technically is essentially, in my opinion, what is their way of saying from the world of Assassin's Creed because technically you buy Rogue and then the next main game, the main line entry in the series
Is
is
Unity.
Unity.
Yeah.
So technically you're buying all the games up to Unity as an Assassin's Creed game, but then you have to buy Rogue separate as a Templar game. I couldn't see them listen to this idea and not going, okay, I like this, so for $40 you buy the next Assassin's Creed
But
game.
the thing is, as a
But
dedicated person for like, if I understand what you're trying to say, like if it's isolated from the bundle of saying like Assassin's Creed and from the universe of Assassin's Creed, would the players have the opportunity? Would have uh, the prerequisite knowledge to buy both the games at the same time? That's what you're trying to say.
yeah, it's that really it's basically looking at the future of Assassin's Creed is bleak because, in my opinion, they've built the fundamentals of
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed, and I'm not going to disagree. I think there are there to be an assassin only game. The fundamentals are there, and they've always been there, but that's Ubisoft's own fault. Like, there's a great quote in Heresy where an assassin is, basically explaining what Templars are, and he says something like, "Oh, Templars just want world domination," and then the Templar in the modern day is like, "Hang on, that's not what we're after." And now, in my opinion, how do you get that in Assassin's Creed game if you are reliving the memory of an assassin as an assassin? You're
Which
not
is why
gonna
it is
then.
important. So that is what I'm saying. They're not exclusive of each other. If you so when I'm saying experience of Assassin's Creed, I'm not excluding the experience of a Templar. The Templar philosophies are what makes me why it is meaningful for an assassin to make that choice for that particular character. It is not like exclusive of the knowledge of the Templar being there just for the sake of being a villain. This is one thing that I had an issue with Syndicate. I'm sorry for fans of Syndicate. The reason why I didn't like it is because they showed Templars to have a motivation of pure evil with nothing in between that could uh, stabilize the society. What they were looking for, what was their main goal in future, and that threw me off as a fan of the series. So having that unique gray experiences, again, Darby said it's not gray; it's the choice that gives you that gives that perspective, the meaning of making that choice. They have the same answers. They want to reach the same answers, but it's the choice of what they do that differs.
And if we're both being brutally honest, if we look at a Ubisoft track record, and this
Yeah,
actually is
no.
a clear reflection on the future of the franchise, you have every game, not counting Rogue, is an assassin game. Bottom line, Rogue is a filler game that you have to buy separately to experience Templar. Oh, and if you want any decent Templar lore, go buy the Transmedia. That, to me, is already dividing fans because some of the stuff I learned in Heresy about the Templars was stuff that I wish the games told me. Like, that's not fair that I had to buy a book to tell me that lore.
Yeah, but that's the fault of Ubisoft as well for setting up
Yes.
that black and white nature. And
It,
but the thing is, in order to achieve that, that doesn't mean you need to isolate the experience of an assassin as well. Mainly because they have built the reputation of the name assassins in Assassin's Creed. So that is what I'm trying to set up here. And if they do it, it would already it is being alienated. We've seen that happening with the last three games, and it will cause even more heavier rifts as we go down the line.
so really looking at the future, it's
Very
finding the
bleak.
balance.
Yeah,
Is the finding balance is going to be hard because Ubisoft, in my opinion, have weighed too heavily on just being an assassin. They've never,
yeah,
Black Flag's one of the best out there because of its unique approach to, you get the mentality of both sides of the Templars and the Assassins, and you eventually side with the Assassins. In my
exactly.
opinion, as people say, well, when you play as the Templar, you don't get the parkour or the freedom. Well, technically, when you look at Black Flag, Edward shouldn't be able to do all them parkour. He was never trained. When you read the Black Flag novel, he was just a farmer, so he was never trained to scale, free run, leap of faith.
I would
Yeah,
say because of him being a privateer would have gained him that skills, but that's just me trying to make sense. Again, the skills of assassins, like for example, parkouring, is not unique to assassins alone. Templars did it too. For example, the best example for this is Maria Thorpe from AC1. She knew parkour. She knew how to outrun Altair, but does that mean that she's an assassin prior to meeting Altair? I don't think so. She's an assassin throughout. So yeah,
so technically, you could build, a Templar story in the past,
yeah.
technically, and still
Hmm.
have the fluidity because, you know, maybe Templars want to get to understand their enemy. So, how can a Templar outsmart an assassin? You think like an assassin.
Right.
That would make sense. And the biggest one that the franchise for the future should really look at is Eagle Vision. Eagle Vision isn't just a bloodline trait for assassins. Anybody can get it
It's a
if you have
cheat
a high enough.
mechanic for gamers like me who can't recognize shit whether it's an enemy or a friendly player.
No, I'm going to agree there, but I think, in my opinion, the franchise refuses to talk about this. I think it's stupid, and I think the future should. Why can't Templars have Eagle Vision? If it's based on the percentage of Isu DNA, why are Templars excluded? Come
I
on,
don't think they're excluded. For example, Hatham did have eagle vision. They had the sense of awareness to do so. Then you have who else? I would say they are honed towards finding. Their methods might differ, which is why they're not honed toward it. But they do have that. If they are focusing on that particular skill set, they might do that. For example, there is this if I'm not wrong, in AC Revelations, there was this assassin who betrayed the Brotherhood. He became a Templar and he started killing off assassins. Obviously, he wouldn't have done that if he did not have eagle vision of some sort.
so I think my whole point is just basically the idea of the franchise should, in the
Yeah,
future, explore these ideas as being more universal than just, oh, it's an assassin thing.
I would say,
Parkour,
yeah,
it's just an assassin thing.
yeah, but
No.
I would say that would happen only if it's diverse in their approach, and they're not. That is in terms of setting, in terms of the narrative, not a male protagonist. Again, come on, we had enough of that. And something that's away from what we have already seen for 15 games. Something that's new. Something that's new that would that would revitalize the series, that would be the best way. But yeah, I don't think that um, like revisiting a previous setting in an older time period would help, like what they did with Valhalla. Of course, the Roman Empire, the remains of the Roman Empire, was super interesting, but again, it's still England. We've been to London. We had these similar experiences before, but through a Norse eyes, that was different. That is new, and that's what players want to find. And want to experience a different perspective into looking through the order, looking through the eyes of the character itself. And that's what I want in the future for an Assassin's Creed, and I hope they find the right balance moving forward.
I've just had a brainwave for such a cool idea for an Assassin's Creed game now.
For me,
It
this
might,
is just playing as Mario Torpe.
but I just thought, imagine an Assassin's Creed game that its backdrop isn't some huge revolutionary, read all about it, history textbooks event. It's just a normal moment in history. But you play as, get with me, a civilian to start with. I know people are like,
Mhm.
oh no, that discovers they have eagle vision and they think they're going crazy. And the Templars try and, kidnap them because, maybe you could play like, a few memories, like two or three, where you're like siding with the Templars because they're giving you all this false hope. Because maybe they think you're like a sage or you've got a high sense of precursor DNA. So they're trying to,
What if we
win you
combine that
over.
and become Mario Torpe?
Well, all right,
Literally,
maybe.
because
But then, like,
that's basically the plot. If we have followed her plot line, is that she believed that the Templar Order was the epitome of her truth, her choice. But after being with Altair, she chose the that the Templar Order is not the truth. It was being with the assassins that the truth does not exist anymore, and truth is not true. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted situation, and she became an assassin. So that is that'll be very interesting. See, that is what I mean by an interesting experience, is that you need to have unique experiences, unique pathways to different protagonists. And that cannot be said if every single protagonist comes through the same nature or the same culture where they come through.
see, there's a lot they could do in the future. So,
Yeah.
one last question for the future, and it's the
Yes.
big one that I have literally spent hours and hours and hours racking my brain, and I've only got two answers that are just stupid, idiotic, and all I can think of. And the question is,
After answering that, I want to know that answer, but let's go.
how can the franchise organically end?
Organically end.
Because
Considering the pathway of how the series is moving forward, they need to end it within the modern day. That is how it ends. You progress through the modern day. The way how the game starts is through the modern day. You start with the modern day, you end with the modern day. You don't end with the mythological uh, backlash or their core being burnt out into the animus. No. Or you experience it only through history, moments in history. No. You have that consequence in modern day, and that consequence is what made you to lead that choice in modern day to end the story then and there. I think that's the best way to end the franchise in a way, is to finish what if you have started in the animus, finish it up with the animus after the animus, so basically the modern day, and you get that choice with that knowledge and use it. That is what I feel should be the perfect ending. But again, it's subjective mainly because it's what I wish. But I want to hear your idea, what you call stupid and crazy.
I think it's really hard as well because how they've already always perceived the Assassins versus Templars like a flip of the coin, both sides. You can't write a story where Assassins win or just Templars win. You've got to find a balance, and that's really going to be hard to achieve. How do you write an organic ending where not one just wins? Without just saying, "Hey, Templars win, end up game over," or "Assassins win, game over," because as Haytham's already described, the Templars will never really die because they don't have a creed to follow. Theirs is
The
not an
same.
order.
That's the same thing with assassins, right? Because the principles behind them remains. So that's pretty great. That's pretty good.
It is, but then it just also had the issue if them ideals never stop, how can a game about order versus freedom ever end? Because one can never win the other. There has to be an equilibrium, a balance.
But that is because we're looking through the past. It all the answer is always within the modern day. You are looking to the past for your answers, what you're looking for. But it is the decision that you make in modern day that reflects it. So that's how I say the series ends.
See, I had two ideas how the series ends, but they're not good.
I know. Like the way how Ubisoft sets up right now, like we've discussed this prior to the talk, like how mythology arc runs through. They're going to milk us dry in terms of mythology, and that is going to happen. But I hope they make it diverse enough that they'll keep my attention for the coming few years at least. But at the moment, I have lost hope in a way. I just hope that it becomes revitalized again.
I think, in my opinion, my out of the two ways to end the series, my serious ending that I think could work, that I would see them setting up with Basim, is an Isu human civil war back in modern day.
Oh
That
yeah,
Basim,
that would be that would be cool.
I think it would work so well that Basim in the first instance, the first will, managed to resurrect Isu, and the assassins and Templars realize that their philosophies are one and the same.
Yeah,
Just the methods
it's
again.
just a major truth. It is the truth.
So
So
what
yeah,
if they did a ceasefire to defeat the temple at the Isu uprising, and that ceasefire and that defeat of the Isu is what ends the series?
could be.
That's my serious answer. I've got a more stupid answer.
But no, because that's very plausible considering how they have set it up. Like for example, with we have discussed this with Dawn of Ragnarok. Suitor could be the vessel for the flare to constantly happen every billion years as the cycle repeats. We're not sure because one, we see him as an entity, but we have not seen him as an object of sorts. It sounds weird when I say that. I don't mean it in any other context. It's just that uh, when you take Suitor, as we have talked about, like whether he's why is he constantly being revived every now and then? What if he is the cycle that ends it all? So that's a pretty interesting concept for them to explore. A lot of possibilities as well. But I hope they make it explicit to the members and not through hidden messages. That takes us to find out. And yeah, and that would capture my attention if it's much shorter in a way.
Well, I have an ending idea that will not capture your attention and will have everyone in the planet rioting.
Uh,
Uh, and I've thought about it as a joke ending, but if it actually happened, I would riot. So imagine you do all this modern day stuff to defeat the Templars defeated, and then there's another total catastrophe, and everything gets wiped out. No matter how much Layla and the radio work, they could never find a way to stop it. And then the screen goes black, credits roll. There's a mid-credit scene where an Isu steps out of an Animus device and says, "Yeah, this simulation didn't work either." The end, and we're left wondering, wait, so the past 15 games were just a simulation? They didn't really happen?
so you just
Screw this. I'm
yeah.
not playing.
No, this will that'll probably would be super pissed. I'll be super pissed if that happened to me. But considering how the adventure has been, it is possible. It's extremely plausible how crazy the ideas have been. So yeah,
Because you imagine though, you've done it, you're like, wow, such an impactful ending. The Templars are finally defeated. We've done such a good job. Mid-credit scene. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, but Simulation 56 didn't work. We followed Desmond, he didn't do anything good. We followed some initiates, they didn't do anything good. And we followed Layla Hassan, and she didn't do anything good. So,
I would say that would
Simulation's
be probably
bust.
be Minerva. If anyone's gonna do that, it's gonna be Minerva.
Just Minerva just swagging in like, sir, look, Desmond didn't pan out, the initiates didn't pan out, Layla Hassan didn't pan out. We're all screwed. You know, the future couldn't save us, now in the past. The end Assassin's Creed, you've just played 15, 20 odd years.
What if
That wasn't real.
what if like that would be interesting. Like say what if like the one of the part of the calculation was that the true ending was to stop the Salakar itself, and that was the answer they were looking for in the simulations, and that took several simulations for them to achieve that.
What if when Minerva talks to Ezio, we all think, like, oh my god, they found a way to talk to the future? No, it's just Minerva talking to the subject, remembering Desmond's memories through a simulation.
Oh god, that is way convoluted than what I had, but okay.
Just everyone just like on the controllers, like, what has just happened? I've been playing this game for years. I am now an old man, and now you tell me that Minerva didn't talk to Ezio. It's just a fake simulation that they set
Yeah,
up because they're
but that
weird.
would make sense mainly because what if that was the answer the Isus were looking for, and the only way to do that is to end it within the cycle that they exist themselves. So they exist as gods, they exist in human lore, but not as Isus, but as gods themselves. And that's the end of their story. They save the
Plot twist and a
humans.
plot
Yeah, they
twist.
save the humans. Yeah, they save the humans from any future catastrophes ever happening again. And no, Desmond does not die. There's no assassins, no Templars. The world is having the normal history that it's supposed to have.
Why does that sound more of an actually fluid ending than trying to say an Assassins or Templars win? Why does oh you know what? If it actually ended like that and it was just to save humans from themselves, like, oh my god, I don't think I'd complain if they like completely said that all the Assassins versus Templar conflict was just, a simulation, and now they know what not to do.
Now, if
It's
Ubisoft
gonna
is
make
going to listen to this, I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't want to spoil it, but that's just speculation.
please give us a nice satisfying ending, because even though this ending's
Yeah.
pretty cool, I really would not know how to feel if I've just basically I started this game when I was 12 years old. I am now 27 playing Valhalla. I don't want to be 40 and them saying, yeah, when you started 12 years old, did you know that wasn't real? It was just a simulation in a simulation of an ISU simulation all this time. I'd still be like,
I mean,
why
considering
did
how
I?
we have went with the mythologies, I don't mind going all the way back.
To be honest, I still would shake my head. I'm not being rude. I set up an amazing podcast. I met amazing people. And all this time we were parading around as an ISU in a simulation of a simulation of a simulation. My
Or to
brain
find the
hurt.
answer. I mean, that would make sense, right? Like for Minerva, she found her answer finally. That the answer was not to be in that conflict, but to stop the Salkar itself from ever happening ever again.
But that's the thing, it works. But at the same time, it wouldn't be satisfactory because I don't want something to say, haha, 12
Gotcha.
years, got
Yeah.
ya. Assassins did actually exist. It's just another reality.
Hmm.
Oh, because technically, the Yggdrasil device does prove that there is multiverse in
Hmm.
simulation. So, oh, the
Yeah.
horror.
But what if the end root of that Yggdrasil is going all the way back? Like the start root of that, like it keeps growing, right? Where does it end?
Uh, what if the what? So the end is the beginning,
Yeah.
essentially. The roots of Yggdrasil, because the
Yeah.
roots is where it starts and where it ends. The
Yeah.
sunlight
So
comes in
basically,
through
we
the
have
leaf.
come full
Oh,
circle. The philosophy of life, bullshit, and then end of Assassin's Creed. Done. Credits roll. I will be taking my $1 million check now. So yeah.
oh. I just wouldn't know how to feel if that was just like like a 20-minute cutscene. And I wouldn't mind watching a 20-minute cutscene. I'm not a monster. I think that'd be pretty cool. Of them just explaining Minerva, like, we need to hide all our piece of Edens before the soul flare happens. We need to make sure humans never find it so they don't fight amongst themselves with it. Let's
Yeah.
stop that history because They were too busy fighting themselves that they
Because that
even
would make
didn't.
sense. That would make sense because we didn't have relics of power that is affecting our current history, but it still happens, but without the effects of the objects of power affecting us in our current history.
But imagine if they did that and then they showed like the real history and we're all just like Isu-ish people that actually managed to survive a solar flare. And that's the true ending of the franchise, is the fact of without them interfering, that humans evolve into Isu-like beings that actually manage to survive all future total catastrophes. And it all happened because we players played 15 odd years of simulations of
To
Assassin's
find the
Creed
perfect
2
answer. And then,
which
yes, to find the answer, we did it. We solved the riddle of Assassin's Creed. Done and dusted. Now we have to wait for another 20 more games, don't we?
because technically you are right, because if you look at the Assassin's Creed glyphs from Assassin's Creed 2, the first Templar order was Cain killing Abel with the Apple of Eden.
Yeah.
That's where it all began. If they literally put everything into, like, I don't know, an Isu rocket to send it to the sun, so when the solar flare comes everything's destroyed and humans will never have objects of power, Cain will never kill Abel because of the Apple of Eden. Therefore, a Templar group may never arise from it. Therefore, assassins may never arise from it. Therefore, human history goes unaffected for so long. Abstergo is never created.
And the
Oh my
Atlantis
god.
cycle breaks. The Atlantis cycle
Oh,
actually breaks.
oh my god. My brain.
Yeah. I mean, like,
My
there's a lot
brain.
of philosophies with it, right? Like, that's the whole thing about Assassin's Creed is the philosophies that keeps questioning us what we do. And that's what Assassin's Creed is in the future. So that's what we need as a perfect ending. That is according to me. Fans, it's up to you to decide. Don't at me if you're going to give non-constructive criticism, but yeah. But feel free to share your thoughts as well.
And I'm going to spin Ikraik's idea on top of his head because I like to be mean. That once you watch like 20-minute cutscene and Minerva figuring out what she should do, there's another cutscene after a credits, and it turns out it's a little green alien from Mars who is watching the simulation, and the Isu aren't real; they're just aliens from Mars. So
Now you're taking
that
it too far. Now it's going too far.
hey, if Desmond and Lucy could leave on a spaceship in the original concept alien concept art, then headcanon, an alien is literally just created the Isu for a video game, and literally he's been
For all
playing
we
this
know,
video
we don't
game.
know what Alphenheims or the elves are in Isu lore. We really don't know. So, which is going to be
There's
interesting.
little green men from space.
Maybe.
AT on home.
Yeah, they like they find the answer. Now you come home. So yeah. So that's it.
imagine,
So yeah.
imagine if, imagine if all of this, right? The actual true ending of all this is just some person playing a video game. That's just it. It wasn't ever real. There's no Isu. There's no Slasver's Temple. It was just somebody playing a video game for so long. we was,
That would yeah, actually that would be the perfect ending for the devs, not for us, but for the devs.
we're sat there like, wait, so what? We've just played a game for 20 plus years that was about a guy playing a game for 20 plus years.
Yeah, that would be the best development joke that they would ever pull off, and I would love to see that. But probably not as a fan of the game, but yeah, I would see. I would love to see the reaction of the devs. Like, oh my god, the fans are going to spend like blow their minds seeing this.
They're all hyping it up like, the ending is here. Because they're all going excited. The ending. Yes, it was a guy called Greg playing Assassin's Creed all this time, and you've just been playing his video game sessions for 20 years. Ha!
Oh
It's
damn,
not real. I'm
that's
like,
rude.
we'll just all be like crying. We'll all be on the floor like, this hurts. We devoted that fan art of Edward was just Greg's own imagining. I've just ruined the franchise for everybody now.
Yeah,
Just, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too for instigating that.
It could be worse. I could have suggested that Assassin's Creed is just a little green alien from Mars playing The Sims, but it's Sims Assassin's Creed edition.
Oh no. Oh my god! And who is controlling the aliens? Do we know?
It twist. It's God themselves.
uh, and then who's
God's just
controlling the gods?
dun dun dun. It gets meta. Oh,
Meta over meta over meta.
the God of God is controlling God, who's controlling God. Infinity.
Yeah, and it goes in Ouroboros fashion. Perfect.
To be honest, let's be all serious. It could be worse. The ending of the game could literally just read "to be continued."
Oh,
Next
yeah.
next day, Assassin's Creed has been pulled. What? You've left what? Wait, what? There's a "to be continued," and now you pull the plug on the franchise.
Yeah,
You've
but
got
yeah,
to be
they
kidding
did
me.
that intentionally, right? So that is how they usually get the fans to, fall for the cliffhangers and shit. So yeah, I would say AC3 had a good ending if they didn't put that cliffhanger of Minerva coming out. Uh, for Valhalla, it was a good. I would say it was a very good stopper for me in terms of like hey, this is how the series would end. Uh, but they still again progressed it forward with Basim coming out. So yeah.
I think Bassim's epic, but that is another like. I'm not going to talk about the leaks because I don't touch them, but the idea of a Bassim DLC being turned into a full game is confusing the hell out of me, and I will not touch on it properly till we get news, but it's still confusing as hell.
Yeah, that'll be great. But it'll be amazing to see his past life in Baghdad and his probably his descent towards becoming Loki. That is what I'm interested in.
That would be cool, but I think that's all we've got time for. Unless you've got anything else to discuss about the future of the franchise.
Oh wow! I already spoiled the ending to the Ubisoft devs. So what do I do now? Just kidding. I think I'm done. I'm exhausted with my resources of what I can say.
Then sadly, I think that is all we've got time for tonight. So the franchise is looking confusing, and is there
That
a
is
problem?
the best future for AC at this point.
Confusing, but we're all here for the ride, and as always, the Let's Talk Assassin's Creed show should hopefully be there for every step of the way, unless I get terrified of the ending of it being a grey man playing Sims, the Assassin's Creed edition, who
Uh,
is run by the god
then we
EA.
played, yeah, we played the god, and then the god before that, the god before that, the god before that. So yeah,
Dun,
the
dun,
game never
dun, dun.
ends.
Infinity. Yggdrasil is God playing Sims Assassin's Creed edition.
And Ubisoft will be the even though Ubisoft dies out, there'll be Assassin's Creed being there in an infinity loop, going on and on and on in the loading screen.
Oh, crikey.
A
So
Jumanji, a Jumanji version of Assassin's Creed.
we broke Assassin's Creed by looking at the future. That is what happens when you meddle in witchcraft and get a crystal ball out. To all the
And
seers out there, don't look into the future of the
Declan, just
franchise.
thinking of Jumanji ending is like, what if like the dev throws away the code and then in some future some random indie dev will be like, doom 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 doom. The Assassin's Creed.
Christ.
And he makes his
Christ.
version of the Infinity Loop.
Assassin's Creed, man, you get sucked into the portal.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for those who are tuning in. I'm really sorry. Oh boy. That's how the future for us feels like. It is uncertain. So that's how the future of AC would be. That's my TED talk. Thank you.
And to us, this is why it's good fun just to have a laugh. The future's not set in stone. We don't know what's going to happen. So, is it wrong to make wild, stupid, hilarious predictions? Well, no, because we don't know anything. So, do you want to imagine the franchise being run by an infinity god? Why not? We don't know how it's going to end. Is it, does Desmond come back on a flying saucer saying ET phone home? Well, technically, Desmond phone home. Then maybe, because the future is bright, wacky, and we just don't know. But If you would like to offer us your own thoughts, you can email us at assassinscreed@gmail.com, or for any constructive criticism on this episode, because we have quite a few strange talking points. You can message me on Twitter at AC Let's Talk and James at James Taylor Quid. And Ikraik, do you want to share any social media
Right. So
people can
you
stalk you
can
on?
yes. So you can follow me on Twitter mainly. So it is at iCrave_original, and you do have an Instagram, but it's almost inactive considering how life pulls you forward. So yeah, you can reach out to me there. I'll be on the AC Sisterhood server as well because I'm the moderator there, and also on the AC forums, but not as active as I'm there on Sisterhood server. So see you there.
And as he said that you can pull him there, it'd be like how the Jumanji Assassin's Creed edition will pull indie devs closer to the infinity loop of Assassin's Creed.
That cracks me up. God damn.
So,
What have I created?
okay, so before we say goodbye, I do have a challenge for you content creators. Please try and design a Jumanji logo for Assassin's Creed.
Ooh,
If you can
no.
do it, because you guys have aced it. I have seen the saber-tooth tiger picture of me, James, and Darby in Isu robes with peace feeding. It is now my Discord profile picture. It is just sweet. So if you can do a Jumanji Assassin's Creed mock-up, we'll be good. So thank you all, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you all. I hope you have a great day.